Welcome back to another Real Estate Notes show. I'm your host, Dave Putz. Alongside me, as always, Mr. Nathan Turner.
Hello, hello.
How are you? Today we're talking about mobile homes. Before we get into mobile homes, it's been a few
Yeah,
weeks since we connected, right? It's
it
it's
has.
it's been a while. We're taking it slow in the summertime, so we'll make sure that how you been doing. How's life been this summer?
It's good, good. So far, right now we're actually in Utah. My
Oh,
oldest daughter is starting school here in a month, and so we're down here helping her get set up, get settled into her. She doesn't actually move into her apartment for another few weeks, but getting everything else going, student ID, all that fun stuff, just getting that all set up.
life, right? Life happens out of
Yeah,
real estate. And we made a post the other day regarding, how do you get your kids more involved? And someone made the comment, just time, right? Um, so it's cool to see this kind of going on. But I think for us, this is the whole point of living life, right? The idea of investing to make means to be able to do things with our family.
yeah, absolutely. It's funny, a few weeks ago I was down in California and stopped by Matt Kelly's place
Oh,
and
nice.
we went out for lunch and had a great time and Matt Kelly in his way he said something about, I mean, we're hardly working.
Yeah,
And I'm like, man, isn't that the truth? And not to diminish what we do because there's certainly work involved,
yeah,
but you know, we're out there going out for lunch because we can. And it was
yeah,
just nice,
yeah,
and that's kind of what this has turned into. And again, not to diminish anything because there's certainly work. There are
yeah,
definitely headaches. There are things to deal with every day. But but then
absolutely.
I also get to, take a week and a half off, go down to Utah to help my daughter get set up for school.
That's amazing. And with life goes on, our kids are important, our family's important, and the people we connect with are important. So it's always good to kind of spend time with people. So I see Sydney on
Mhm.
Facebook commenting that she saw Matt over the weekend. That's awesome, right? Spend time and you become those who are not familiar with this space. This space is real small. We all become really close friends, even though we're not the same company. We're investing
Mhm.
differently. We're still friends and we get along really well. With that
Even
said,
sometimes we're even competitors, but we're
yes,
still friends.
yes, right. Um, with that said, though, what we realize is that, investments can go and come and go and things happen. But I think for me, is learning off each other and bridging that gap of knowledge, right? And sometimes we have to check our ego at the door, which is difficult for a lot of us and really difficult for some of us, right? And because we think we've been in it for X period of time, we know a lot of stuff. And what sometimes we have to check at the door and say, okay, what do I not know? Or what do I not know
Mhm.
about this particular topic? Because that's a huge fashion, right? I've been seeing assets come through. Um, yes, a good comment from Patrick. I'll put on the video is that it's all collaboration, which is absolutely true.
Mhm.
Thanks, Pat. Patrick. So you know, I've been looking at a bunch of assets lately regarding some seller finance notes and some owner finance and helping them strategize. But it all comes back to leaning on those who I relate to closely to ask questions of, just get an idea of where we're at, where am I missing? What am I getting from it? So I think it's really cool that we have that. How has business been for you in regarding seeing assets, supply? Are you seeing any change in your inventory or what's coming on your, desk?
Yeah, there's still quite a bit of deal flow out there. I am branching out and looking at different things. So a friend of ours that was on the call the other day with our private call, um, talking about hypothecation on some notes that he's creating, and I know you've dabbled in hypothecation. It's something
Yeah,
you're a little bit leery of at this point, but for me, for my structure, and Jay said it well, like it really comes down to how well do you know the person you're dealing with.
true.
And if I have that kind of confidence and trust in that person, that hypothecation model for me in the fund, it works really, really well. And so that's something we're exploring more as well. So
Absolutely. And we'll talk after hours. I got some interesting stuff I want to try out and we'll talk after the show about it. But
yeah, I
yes,
sent you an email the other day to another
yeah.
angle.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. We'll
Yeah.
see.
We'll bring it on the show when we feel comfortable that it's something that we feel good about. You know, we explore a lot of things, right? We explore a lot of people to bring on the show, but really be careful what we do because we want to make sure you guys get the best and greatest things we can possibly come up with, right, for the
Right.
show. You know, we're talking mobile home parks and some topics about land notes, stuff like that, and also just some really cool stuff that's going on that may
Yeah.
not be in our niche, right? And we have a lot of audience members who are creating notes. So those who are creating notes, we're still there for you guys as well because we're bringing on people who are top dog people in the field creating notes and
Yeah.
originating them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's been such a great connection,
Yeah,
many connections actually over the last couple of years of
yeah,
some of these note creators and teachers. And I mean, it's the same business, it's a different arm of the business, and we can definitely work together, and we do work together. And so we're excited to make more of those connections.
yeah. And I have seen an influx of non-performing notes come across our desk. So we're
Have
starting to
you?
see the break.
Interesting.
Yeah. We saw
Hmm.
a tape the other day where it was 25-75 non-performing to
Okay.
performing,
Yeah.
which means something's happening, right? We'll see where it goes from there. Um, and we talked about getting outside of our comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
You and I have been the two things we don't touch is A, land notes. We kind of avoid them because you just don't get the idea if we have to foreclose on it, selling it.
Yeah.
And we've had a good debate about that. But then
Yeah.
we've also talked about mobile home notes in this whole idea of bringing on a
Yeah.
mobile home note as a note instrument to buy and hold and foreclose on, all this stuff. It's a whole new market, right? And we're kind of hesitant
Yeah.
about it.
I've done two in my career. One, I lost a little bit. The other, I squeaked out and it turned a profit, but I got lucky. And with those two, I've been very hesitant to look at anything since. And then we
Yeah.
meet these other guys and we're going, let's have another look.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, let's bring in our man of the hour and talk. So, Alden, tell us about yourself.
Hey, yeah, appreciate the time here today. Great to connect with the both of you after DME. But yeah, I'm Alden Guajardo. I'm Vice President of Win Mobile Homes. Win Mobile Homes operates as a licensed manufactured home dealer here in Arizona. We buy, remodel, resell manufactured housing on leased land, which is definitely a big topic. Trying to find out the validity of that asset and, ultimately what the risk factor is in manufactured housing. So we've been buying, remodeling, reselling, and then found out that there's an opportunity in the market to originate a seller carry note because not everyone has the $50,000 to $80,000 to put out on a home purchase. Most people need financing. So we found an opportunity in the market to start originating seller carry notes and run them through their formal processes. So that's just a little synopsis of what we're capitalizing here in Arizona. And I think that there's a big market for this product. Why? Because the lack of affordability in my market of residential real estate, as well as lack of new builds from COVID. So during COVID, they had like a year and a half of not issuing new permits for products to come out on the market, as well as multifamily rental rates have gotten to all-time highs. So really, for our market here in Arizona and possibly other markets throughout the country, I think there's a big door of opportunity for affordable housing, which is a state of emergency right now
Hmm.
across the country, and especially here in Arizona, being a top 10 market. And the lack of new products coming out on the market for individuals to facilitate a quality, affordable housing program, whether that be by rental or, conventional ownership, it's a
Hmm.
challenge and a problem, and that's what we're capitalizing here in Arizona.
Hmm.
How'd you get started in this? What
Yeah.
brought you into this?
So yeah, 16 years old, my father was buying homes at the bank house steps. So I was evaluating foreclosure homes, trying not to get shot in the East Valley, and ultimately, getting some chops in the industry. Did some other things as far as fine dining and things of that nature. But in 2018, my father actually was approached through an education seminar that we were involved in from an individual that was buying and selling mobile homes. And he actually had the idea to buy them and sell them to parks like outside the state. Well, I'm like, the value is really where the home's at for some
Sure.
individual to facilitate home ownership, opposed to the challenges that come with the move of the home and the permits that are needed. We saw an opportunity on a modified model that was brought to us in order to buy that same asset, remodel it there, sell it there. So it's never moving. And a lot of these homes ended up moving once in their entire life. It was from the factory to that lot. And a lot of that happened in the 70s here in Arizona. That's when a lot of the parks were built. So they moved that one time to that park and they sat there for 40 years. And we found this to be an opportunity to buy that dilapidated asset where these mobile home parks don't really have the savviness to remodel them and reperform that product. They're a landlord. They're just looking to, collect their lot rent. Well, they found this, maybe 2 or 3 homes that come back in their portfolio and they're like, man, it's trashed. To put in a new property is $100,000 plus setup plus transport. You lost 6 months of cash flow. It's a challenge. So we fit that need within this market of recash flowing these properties when we find them out on the market. And it's blossomed. It's extremely blossomed here locally in Arizona because a lot of parks, like I said, don't have that savvy nature to
Sure.
remodel it or get raked over the coals by a contractor. All of that is to account for. So over the past couple of years and where we started in 2018, we bought our first home, hired our first rehabber, and did some market testing. And through that testing here, we saw at a cash price, people were purchasing around 30 to 40,000 homes that needed work still.
Hmm.
And that created an opportunity for us because we knew that they wanted a nicer home and they were willing to possibly even qualify for a higher purchase, but those products weren't really so much out on the market. So facilitating that need for more quality housing, they serviced AC units, new electrical, a quality home that they can live 15 to 20 years in, opposed to the connotation towards short-term ownership in mobile homes, where now we've found that within this market, it's more of a primary solid housing source for individuals because the lack of affordability, as well as the people want pride of ownership.
Sure.
Who doesn't want to own their own home at the end of the day? And to fit that need in an affordable price point that's offered in a manufactured home on leased land, opposed to average purchase prices here in the valley are about $450,000. We'll do it to qualify for a $400,000 mortgage. You have to make $80,000 a year with no debt. Who Not many people can qualify for that,
Absolutely.
especially here in Arizona. So I'm
So
going on a
let's,
little bit of a rant.
that's
My
okay. That's
apologies.
okay, my man. It's all good. So let's ask some good questions here to get some stuff. First off, let's define some things for those who may not know. What do you mean by what's manufactured home versus a mobile home?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there is a definitive factor of manufactured date. So in 1977, I think it was August, they made building codes that were non-lead, non-lead paint, asbestos, faulty wiring, and updates in plumbing. So 1977 and before are considered mobile homes,
Gotcha.
from my understanding. Post 1977, they changed the name to manufactured home, which was a HUD guideline because of the change in building material. So that's the kind of differentiator. A lot of the times these mobile homes, really moved one time in their life,
Hmm.
from the factory to the lot. They may move, it's a possible to move another time, but oftentimes it's financially non-advantageous.
So I
Gotcha.
think most people, when they think of mobile homes, they think it's on wheels. You pull it with a trailer, you park it, and then you might
100%.
move it again next week.
Yeah, they think RV. This is
Yeah.
not an RV. It's not on wheels. If it's post 1977, there's probably no tongue on the front in order to hook it up to a transport unit. They're
Mhm.
on factory spec. I think they're called stilts. That they end up removing the axles, they take the tires, and they set them at that lot, really with a long-term mindset. These parks
Mhm.
themselves are the ones that primarily brought them in the 70s. And if you think on an institutional play to own the park, you want that home there as long as you can keep
Yeah.
it there, at the end of the day, because that's your business
So,
model.
I
Mm.
think Nathan's onto something because I think, I look back, my grandmother lived in a trailer, metal sides, metal roof, and it just didn't look like a home. It looked like an inexpensive, cheap thing. And you walk inside of it, and everything was kind of built cheaply.
Yeah.
100%.
That's the old homes, right? This is the pre 1977. This is back, yeah. I mean, I was in the 80s going to visit her, right? So I think that what you're saying is before that, they were built differently and they're structured differently, and they were really built for a motor vehicle way of living versus, I mean, she never towed it, it never moved, but that
Sure.
was what's in my image of a mobile home is this, skirted RV.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, and it's a big negative connotation, mobile homes. They're travesty of the Netflix series that came out, Trailer Park Boys. That just paints a really bad picture, I think, of this environment. And really, here in Arizona, 10% of homes in Arizona are mobile homes and manufactured housing. That's a lot. That's a big market.
Yeah.
I do maybe 75 homes a year. We're not
Wow.
even scratching the market. And those homes that were pre-70s are now coming due. They just went through their first 40-year life cycle. And Dave, your grandmother's moving out next week or whatever,
Yeah.
and transitioning in life cycle. Now the park's taking back that unit that has metal siding and all of that. That's an opportunity. Why? Because it fits on an acquisition to buy that property, rehab it, and match a price point under what the new homes are going for replacement cost. So, like a new home in a quality community could go for $175,000. Well, if I can buy that mobile home at 5 to 10 grand and put 50,000 into it, and we did new electrical, plumbing, siding,
What works? Yeah.
paint, everything, and it's literally almost like we're manufacturing a new home, not literally, but
Yeah.
it
Guts.
fits that model. Those homes came through the life cycle. They were all brought here in the 70s. These parks don't know
Mhm.
what to do with them. They're like, hey man, this knight in shining armor comes through and wants to take on the potential risk of buying that property, rehabbing it up to quality, getting a qualified client, and then on the back end, having a better exit strategy potentially of originating a seller carry note if you can't find a cash buyer, and you get them fully qualified. It opens up a more concrete idea of like pricing, where you're at in the market, because if we can match a seller carry note on that home with market rent, the advantages are that individual gets pride of ownership. On the investment side, they can't go anywhere for cheaper. They
Mhm.
were possibly crying at closing because they were left out of home ownership. They've been
Yeah.
told for 10 years they don't qualify. On residential property, there's a scarcity in financing. On manufactured housing, there's
Sure.
not all that many options. I think I saw Joe
So let's
Biden. Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead,
wanted to
Dave.
clarify. So you get this old 1960 trailer, right? Are you kind of tongue off? Are you detitling it? Are you making it a fixed with foundation? are you going that severe, or where are you? What is the changeover from what we see as a trailer to being a home, right?
Sure.
Do you put a foundation on? Do you cut the tongue off? Do you make it so that it never can be put back together and pulled out again?
Yeah, so in technicalities, it could move. It could move, but the financial requirement in order to move that property, set it up on another lot, get permits, and restore the lot to its original condition, you're talking about a $50,000 play on a home
Whoa.
that they may have paid 100 for. They're like, man, unless they
Yeah.
have a pre-developed lot that they bought and already developed and has city utilities and things of that nature, it's
I think
non-financially advantageous.
I think what me and Nathan see is them hooking up a F-150 to it, pulling it down the street,
Yeah,
and my asset's gone, right?
sure. That
Um,
couldn't happen. And
yes.
why can that not happen? Because there's no tongue on the property. These properties don't have a hitch, a trailer hitch or anything like that. You'd have to go buy the MVD required axles and the tires, find a transporter. You can't just move these with the F-150. You could maybe try, but it's not going to get off the lot.
Gotcha.
But
So
yeah, it's
then,
really, go ahead.
so my other question then is like, what's the difference then between a manufactured home and a regular residential home?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a mobile home could be quote unquote permanently affixed to a lot, which
Mhm.
Dave mentioned, detitling and creating that mobile home and lot into one. So now that's a
Okay.
real property, residential real estate treated as such. These are titled through the Department of Transportation. So it is
Mhm.
technically like a car title, but there is a secured title on that specific unit. And that's where the differentiation lies, right? You have leased land, mobile homes, that's considered technically personal property. And then you have, like Dave mentioned, detitled mobile homes that are permanently affixed to the lot. They got tie downs and things of that nature. The
Yeah.
big difference I see with the two of those products in my market here in Arizona is you're talking about a $250,000 purchase or
Mhm.
a 50 to 100. So it's
Mhm.
definitely a different buyer financial requirement,
Mhm.
financing, and things of that nature. So those are just the differentiations between those two products.
So I
All
think we had
right.
a question on here is that, on the chat, and I definitely, Cindy, I'll get you in a minute, was, that you can write into a promissory note that it can't be moved. I don't think our fear
Correct.
is that, right? Our fear is if they already defaulted on us and trying to get out of town with our asset, that's where our fear is, right? So if they're pulling away, we assume they already stopped paying, making payments,
Sure.
right? So we're worried about our scenario of fear is we have Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith who are paying us great, and then they stop paying us.
Sure.
When they
Mhm.
stopped paying us, they didn't hook this thing up to some kind of truck, flatbed, whatever, and pull it out. And now we go to foreclose on it and we have nothing to foreclose on.
Or yeah, or
Or
it's in Tahiti, afraid, hopefully not. That's,
yeah. Yeah.
that is go ahead, Nathan. Sorry to cut you off
No, go
there.
ahead. I want to hear what you got to say that, and then I'll add to my my experience.
Yeah, so first off, the individual that came in and bought that home originally from us, maybe on a note, right? They sign also a lot lease with where that home is at in location.
Mhm.
Contractually within their documents as well as ours, it requires them to, one, let them know of their intentions of either moving that property or things of that nature, as well as they're contractually required to return the lot to its pre-existing condition, which means you have to grate that lot. You have to remove the two big cement pads. On top of that, like I mentioned previously, the financial requirement in order to do that planning, the permits, the communication with a transporter, because you have to have a licensed transporter. The transporters can go talk to the park, make sure all of those ducks in a row if that were ever to happen. But they are contractually required to fulfill those requirements. Why do I bring that up? Because if an individual is going behind on their payments, technically in a mindset, they do not really have any money to relocate that property.
True.
Why would they be going behind on the note and then have an
Mhm.
extra 50,000 out of nowhere, to go
Good
move
point.
the home? It just
Good point.
doesn't so
Yeah.
much make sense.
The boogeyman in the closet is not really there.
Anything
Yeah.
could happen, right? There's an element of risk in every
Yeah,
investment strategy, but it's important to see the dynamics of financial requirements, contractual agreements of what people are responsible for if that were to happen, as well as a lot of these people are moving into really this is their either first or last place to live majority of the time,
sure.
where they've owned this property, whether it be 55 and older or a new family. Well, the new family wanted a solid place to live, where they wanted to live at. They may have school pickup in that community, and the 55 and older individual wanted to retire affordably, in that area. They're not just buying that home to buy the home. They wanted to live there off those cross streets. Their daughter lives down the street, or whatever that may be. Those are a lot of
Yeah.
positive factors to reinforce the fact that that home and that tenant, that seller carry owner wants to be off that in that area and things of that nature.
Go ahead, Nathan. Go ahead and ask your question because I have a follow-up as well regarding some numbers.
Yeah. So like I say, I bought 2 mobile home notes in my career here over the last 15 years. And on the first one, it was non-performing. This was back when everything was non-performing. And so I went to go and foreclose, and then it was not affixed to the property. So I was foreclosing on personal property, and it was a completely different process, and it was a little bit funky. The second time that I bought the note, I thought I had done all my homework, and I'm like, okay, so it's fixed, everything's cool, everything's good. It was in Nevada, and then I came to find out that in Nevada, there's actually 2 steps to the process, and they'd only done the first step, so it still hadn't been affixed. So
Yeah.
with that, I'm like, you know what? I don't know this well enough. I don't understand it, so I'm out. So can you walk us through, if it's still technically a mobile home, if it has not been detitled, if it has not been affixed to the land, what does that look like in case of default? How is that remedied?
Yeah, so we've come across a great attorney here in Arizona that we've put on retainer, and he kind of showed us the ropes, over the past 5 years. So ultimately, on top of that, we have some other previous park management that works with us, so we know exactly what to do, what processes, etc. But again, it
Mhm.
is a different process. It's a car title. This is not real property. You're not going to the residential courts to get a foreclosure. Entirely different process. It being leased land, we go through a formal eviction processes and then a affidavit of repossession. So we repossess that property after they go through an eviction processes of non-payment, depending on the terms laid out in your document. So obviously, on the note or contract or whatever was secured, with the lien, it details what the time requirements are to issue that repossession and formal eviction, things of that nature. Communities themselves have other binding agreements within their lease. So if they go non-performing with the park, on either side, either our note that they stop paying or the community ends up stop payment, that within like 40 days, the community will have them out and talk to whoever's on title. So either the lien holder or
Wow.
who originally owned that property. They did it all for us, technically. Uh,
Mhm.
when we start getting either late payments or non-payment, we're doing the best of our ability to try and work it out and
Sure.
really, do we want to take the property back? We really don't, right? No one wants to do that.
No.
We did it for a performing note. We put Jenny Mae in her house. She
Yep.
qualified for that note. We
Yeah.
want her to
So
have
let's
her
let's
home.
talk some numbers here, right?
Of course.
What's the term of these notes? What is typically a down payment percentage of the term of the overall purchase, and what rate of interest are you doing?
Yeah, so our benchmark, right, is our regular modus operandi. We're doing about 10% down payments. We're seller carrying at either a 10 or 20-year program, 10 or 20, depending on what those payments look like. With a higher purchase price, we're going to have to carry a little bit longer just because where rental rates are currently.
Okay.
And then we're originating at 14%. So we seller carry at a decent rate in order to not only get the individual into the property, but also create a savvy strategy on the back end to entice an investment client into a non-conventional asset strategy. So those are kind of the numbers, and those numbers really match market rent, which is the biggest win. I think you're not only potentially acquiring a note that's a high return, but also the grade of that investment strategy ends up being elevated because it fits within the affordability of our market. And if an individual can't go somewhere for cheaper and they, find pride of ownership in these homes, it's really a win-win-win
Yeah.
for the investor, for the homeowner, for the individual that bought, remodeled, resold the property, for the institution that owns the park. It really hits a lot
Wow.
of boxes.
So Cindy asked a question earlier. These older homes that you're rehabbing, are they still on leased land? I presume they are.
Yeah, so we buy homes on leased land, we rehab it on the leased land there. We sell it there. So we're not buying on a lot, from the wholesaler, cross country, moving it here, rehabbing it here. Those homes were already placed with city utilities, city water, city sewer. They have amenities in the community like pool, jacuzzi, fitness center, on-site management, park community office. But again, they're on that leased land community. They're not in often Casa Grande on one random lot,
Sure.
out in the boonies. It's in an established, institutionally owned community. They have their rules and regs and things of that nature.
And it sounds to me as that the park would actually help prevent a situation of the borrower try and pull the mobile home out of there, right? They also go in the point where are some parks set up that if the borrower defaults, they'll keep making the payment for the borrower?
I haven't quite come across that yet. I've heard of that with the
I've heard it
larger
as well.
institutions. Like 21st Mortgage is the largest national lender of personal property mobile homes. And I think they do have a clause in their agreement that the park signs that says something of that nature where it's either like deferred or it can't come to them for the attorney fees. It's a little muddy because I'm the little guy on the block.
It's all good.
I'm not quite Warren Buffett and 21st Mortgage. Uh, but that creates an opportunity
Yeah,
if a community themselves is not a savvy, they don't like that guideline where they have to co-sign that loan or
sure.
they have to forbear those payments. They're going to come to us. They're like, hey, we got this deal over here. We like what you do. We have an established relationship here in Arizona with you. They start kind of chefing us deals.
Yeah.
And obviously the risk mitigation on the front end is extremely important to make sure that we're not getting burned if we were to take a property back while still being responsible for these small fees associated towards
Mhm.
getting the asset back and recash flowing it. The mitigation on the front end is definitely important.
I know a lot of mobile homes that I've ever heard of usually are 5-year terms. I understand extending it. And I get the whole, I know someone made a comment regarding, Dodd-Frank and usury laws and making sure it's not above, state specific rules.
Absolutely.
But I think, is there any kind of restrictions regarding how long that term of that, motor vehicle loan can be?
Yeah, so I piggyback off my great great grandfather Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, 21st mortgage. He originates notes at 25 and 30-year mortgages and
Wow.
matches sometime our rate. What is that rate? Oh, that's 14%. You're telling me
Yeah.
that Warren Buffett and 21st mortgage is originating personal property chattel loans on 25 and 30-year amortized interest rates of 14%. That's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. 14% for 25 years. And
That's
these people, you're right. These people don't, me and Nathan's talked about privately is that low income housing is definitely a need in the United States, right? People don't have the
Mhm.
money. People don't want to pay a lot. And if you could be below rent, you're going to grab the people who want to rent, but just say, listen, I might as well buy here for rental. Um,
Mhm.
they
100%.
own the land, all that stuff. And I'm presuming that most of these are there's communities set up with HOAs where they cut the grass for them and things like that.
Yeah, so it's not HOA, it's called lot rent. So your lot lease in a lot leased community, right? You have the real benefits of kind of an HOA, of shared facilities like amenities, pool, jacuzzi, fitness centers, where they don't have to pay to upkeep those personally, things of that nature. They are responsible for their lot, so like weeding and things of that nature. But here in Arizona, it's really low maintenance. It's not like there's a whole lot of grass out here. It's a lot of just lava
Well
rock
said.
and things like that.
Well
Uh,
said.
but the communities really do a great job. I call it the finger wave, of talking to owners and making sure
Mhm.
that their lots are clean. They want to have a clean, safe environment because of where the institutional strategy is for these parks are buying them for the 50-year return, these
Mhm.
mobile home parks, and they're increasing values, increasing quality, waving the finger here and there to try and make sure that the everything's up to par.
So Rick made
So
a
that was
comment that most banks can't loan on pre-HUD mobile homes. Just information. I know we put it into the
yeah.
video, but just FYI. Go ahead, Nathan.
So and you mentioned it there, but that was another question of mine is values. What's appreciation like? What's how does that compare to single family?
Yeah, so historically, mobile homes have not appreciated. It is
Right.
considered a depreciating asset. What
Mhm.
level of depreciation is highly contingent on location, the community, and the current economic environment in the country. So we
Okay.
started flipping mobile homes about 7 years ago, and we started doing notes about 5. So over the past 5 years, we've had the unfortunate happen where we've had to take back a few, like five, maybe over 5 years, something like that.
Mhm.
Coincidentally, we just saw the biggest appreciation in residential real estate from COVID,
Hmm.
as well as the lack of housing here in Arizona. I made more money on those homes than I'd care to explain.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Retaking those properties back, getting appreciation on that asset that historically hadn't appreciated. Now, that being said, is that going to
Yeah.
happen every time? No, that's not going to
And I think we
happen.
fear the fact that we call the COVID bump of appreciation is
Mhm.
kind of screwing some stuff, right? In the last 5 years, everything is doubled and not tripled sometimes. Where if
100%.
you look over, if you hold that note for 20 years, is that property worth 5 grand at the end of it? Right? What is that property worth at the end of it? Where if we're 12 years into this note, and that was sold for 100 grand, right? And in 12 years from now, if I bought a residential note, that thing may be worth a buck 50, 200, where that mobile home may now only be worth 30 or 40,000 on
Sure.
normal terms, right? If you bought it a mobile home today, 10 years from now, without the weird bump that we're all going through,
Sure.
what would that value be? And that's I think our fear of going too far with these kind of
Mhm.
homes and why most people don't do more than five because of that value.
Yeah, no. I think really I can only speak about my current market. I'm not
Sure,
a guru in every state or anything of that nature by any means. But
sure,
here in Arizona, there's really been an interesting revelation that's come to the table because of the high desirability of these locations, like Tempe, Mesa. A lot of Fortune 500 companies are moving here to Arizona.
sure,
On top of that, the population density with lack of housing alone here in Arizona, I think that we're seeing a lot of growth that we can't so much facilitate housing for the individuals that moving here to the market. On top of that, with the lack of housing here in Arizona, the uh where was I going with this? Oh, the buyer has changed. So it's not
sure.
so much the same buyer anymore who could barely buy this home originally. They were scraping by, it was literally the cheapest place to live that they could find ever, and they lived there for 20 years. Well,
Mhm.
that individual doesn't have as much pride of ownership and maybe
No.
cleanliness and upkeep, and it
Hmm.
didn't have, you know, granite counters and drywall and things of that nature. So the dynamic being changed of the buyer,
Yeah,
I think, will ultimately help values hold strong, not only because the location and high desirability, as well as population growth here in my market, but also that individual is now going to take that much better care of that property, opposed to an individual getting that home back and there it's a hoarder house now, or you know, whatever it may be. That's the
sure.
historical connotation towards mobile homes. They get it back, it's trashed, there's holes in the
Hmm.
floor. Those are the homes I'm buying. And
Yeah.
I'm doing
Hmm.
a
T-
full rehab, higher level of quality as far as cabinets, granite counters,
Sure.
tile bathrooms. It'll hold
Hmm.
that, in my opinion, because of the location and the higher quality, as well as new buyer who's going to take that much better of that product. I think that it creates a stronger environment to hold values higher than historical representations of a depreciating mobile
And I think one of our other fears is the structure of the actual property, right? I think the idea is that again, I go back to that metal shed we call a
home.
trailer,
100%.
right? Are these new ones not like, is it, my grandma's trailer was rusting out, right? There's holes in the side of it because the rust just went away. Are
100%.
these structured differently? Are you changing the sides from a metal roof to a normal roof, metal sides to a normal side to avoid the fact that not even depreciation, but the house is falling apart. Then 50 years,
Sure.
it's dust.
Right.
100%. Yeah. Those are the homes I'm buying. The not, you know, older homes, they are disintegrating almost
Hmm.
because of the products that they used at that time. And us going into these properties doing new, it's called T111. T111 is the new siding that they're putting on all these brand new homes. And that upgrades the insulation value of the property. It's really important here in Arizona. It's like 115 degrees here right now. But also going through and doing new electrical and plumbing and things of that nature, making sure subfloors sturdy and up to par. There's no holes in the ceiling, holes in the siding. The benefit of the metal roof is the service is so easy. Every
Hmm.
5 years, you buy a 10-gallon bucket of Henry Solar Flex from Home Depot, and you coat the dickens out of it,
Yeah.
of the roof, and seals the entire roof. The benefit here in Arizona is not a whole lot of natural disaster, so no like big tornadoes or you know,
Hmm.
crazy storms, things of that nature. But to answer to your question, we go through these properties and to the best of our ability, make sure that they're almost like a new home, you know, making sure that when we sell a product to an individual, we want to hedge our investment. We don't want to sell a piece of trash and to a non a less qualified buyer who's ultimately going to have us take that property back. Now we're in a jam because we never rehabbed the property originally.
Mhm.
It's all on the front end. I get like you see, changing the quality of that home. The cabinets that come out in new mobile homes are all dingy cabinets. They're
Yeah.
not nice quality cabinets. Even on a new home out of Clayton and Cavco, they manufacture their own cabinets. We're buying higher quality cabinets, granite, making sure things are up to code and things of that nature.
It's so funny. You talk about granite and countertop with that. I've never looked at any of my notes to see what kind of countertop they had. I've never looked at cabinet. I don't even care what kind of fridge they got, right? I care about the fact that in 30 years, what's that value of that property going to possibly be? Because in
Yeah.
15, I may have to foreclose on it, right?
No,
So
100%. And I
this,
bring those factors
yeah.
up because the home's going to last a lot longer than the previous materials that they had used.
Are
These
you
new
using
building
studs on the
codes.
outside? Are you putting studs on the outside? Or are you just covering over top of the old metal?
Yeah, so we're applicating on the outside with a vapor barrier underneath that, which adds to the insulation value
Sure.
with the double side of it. But there's no need to add additional 2x4s unless that the structure is when we take the siding and the interior paneling off. Obviously, if we're seeing anything that's a blaring concern, we're going to end up replacing anything as well as, like termite damage, things of that
Mhm.
nature.
Yeah.
Ultimately, making sure that the quality of the existing unit, in addition with our rehab and refurbish of anything that's, needed. We're doing a lot of cyclical processes. They're doing the same thing on the same house.
Mhm.
So it's been a real kind of blessing to be able to fall into a program where we know on every property it's going to fit these criteria and it's going to hold a stronger value. Am I going
Sure.
to say that these homes are going to appreciate? I'm not so much saying that. Can they depreciate? Yes, they can depreciate, but the quality of that home, to think that it's going to disintegrate over a 15-year program is I don't believe
Okay.
to
That's fair.
I don't believe that to happen. Why? Because these mobile home parks are buying for a 50-year return. If
Sure.
all 400 of those homes
Yeah.
that they bought on the idea that this 50-year program is going to be a cash cow and it's generational wealth for BlackRock, Vanguard, the big three that are buying mobile home parks. If they're buying mobile home parks for the long-term idea of the cash cow of mobile homes, and they know that these homes depreciate, and they may, let's say hypothetically to your point, they all disintegrated in 15 years. Now they have to spend half of what they paid for the park to bring in new
Yeah.
homes just for the
Mhm.
same cash flow. That just, to me, that doesn't make so much sense.
So
And I
let's
see where
switch.
you're
Mhm.
coming from.
So let's switch over to the idea of for those of people who are not looking to create these notes, looking to buy them, right? I don't know if you offer this, so I apologize if we asked this beforehand. Do you ever sell a note that you created?
Yeah, so we do look at vacating the notes that we create under a seller carry program, right? The notes themselves are fully qualified. So the individual goes through underwriting and has a RMLO stamp off on that note. So an individual fits a criteria of 600 credit, no past criminal, no open bankruptcies, no past evictions, and verifiable income. Now, depending on how they verify that income, we have some leeway doing like self-employment programs
Sure.
and things of that nature. But
Mhm.
also on top of our initial underwriting, the community is also doing an underwriting for the community themselves. So do we check for felony convictions? No,
Yeah.
but the community does. The community does a full first underwriting. So once we get their application back from the community says they're good, they go through the financial requirement of getting that seller carry loan, and we're off to the races. And at that point, we make a decision. Okay, are we needing to recapitalize to go out into the market and go after other opportunities and sell that note to an investor at the full face rate? Or we hypothecate it, which you had mentioned earlier. And I think that for personal property mobile homes, for capital investors, the hypothecation model, I think, fits a little bit better for this type of asset class. Why do I say that? Because we have such a cyclical processes. We're a licensed dealer. We have 10 sales agents that are already selling mobile homes across the valley for Jenny Mae and Roger that wants to buy a house. We broker that house. The advantage of the hypothecation is you have a vested partner within that note. So if anything does end up going wrong or the note ends up coming due and we have to recash flow that property, you have a vested partner that has boots on the ground. We have about 12 to 15 rehabbers that work for us full time and a full sales staff. So to be able to take that property back and establish it out on the market creates, I think, a more secure strategy for an individual that may not be as savvy. So the two are buying a note whole, right, which comes with its inherent potential risk of a note going non-performing. And if that happens on a primary note holder, we give them access to our back office. So at cost, will allow them to use our attorney, go through the eviction processes and things of that nature. So they don't have to call, John Robb, who's, got $5,000 retainer or whatever, which is a challenge. You're trying to, recash flow that property. So anyway, those, and then the hypothecation, right? So whole note and then hypothecation are the two strategies that we're offering.
So one of the questions we had on Facebook was, do you offer loan guarantee for investors?
So we've talked about that. There's no personal guarantee. It is a pledged asset in order to garnish capital investment, which is the definition of hypothecation. That being said, we have looked at that potentially to do a buyback, not a personal guarantee, but a potential buyback. And those are things in conversation right now as we're rolling out this fund. So Silvercrest Opportunity Fund is a opportunity fund that we're rolling out to raise larger capital from accredited investors backed by these personal property notes. And the fund would probably provide some form of buyback or really, at no information to the investor, we end up just retaking the property back and reselling it because it's in the fund. We're all vested together.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of us would love to buy notes, especially at 15%, right? It'd be really cool to get those assets in our hands. Would you be willing to sell off one or two of them, or are you looking for people to partner with you guys moving forward?
Yeah, so from Diversified Mortgage Expo and Paper Source, the Note Expo, meeting Nathan and Dave here, I tell you, over the past, I think, year and a half to 2 years, from our growth and meeting clients at these conferences and associations and finding our niche within this business, we've grown an investment clientele list that's somewhat healthy, could always grow more. But that being said, we've come into an issue of not being able to facilitate the demand for these notes that we're currently originating here in our market. And that created an opportunity for an individual to additionally take a first right of refusal on a construction loan. So that allows us to take a capital investment backed by a lien for an investor on like a 10% annualized interest only payment or 12% deferred, where on that specific note, when we've already acquired it, they get a first right of refusal on the seller carry note that comes available. And really, we did that out of necessity for the investor, where we wanted to additionally satisfy the demand and the appetite, as well as capitalize further in our market. Like I said, mobile homes are 10% of housing here in Arizona. I've done 250 in 5 years. It's $1 billion industry, mobile homes. It's quite literally I think one of the next most explosive markets in the country, and Warren Buffett sees it. He owns Clayton and Cavco, the two largest manufacturers of mobile homes, 21st Mortgage, and then a few other smaller time lenders. But with the state of emergency in housing and high rental costs, high labor and material, ultimately creating a high rental rate when they build the property, it really, I'm excited.
Before Nathan gets to his final question, I want to some of our Facebook chat here going backward was how do you find these mobile homes for sale? What's your typical strategy to find these homes? Because that's always a difficult thing, right?
And then
Yeah,
let me add, are
no,
you looking to expand outside of Arizona?
So yeah, definitely looking at expansion. The challenge with expansion is the boots on the ground. So really, I'm gonna start courting, I think, some trusted individuals in other markets and start to figure out how we further collaborate and maybe make a brand play out of it, where we go to like Florida or Texas,
Franchise,
some
yeah.
some hotter markets. And then I
Mhm.
skated over your question, Dave. Your
That's
question
okay.
was, how do we find mobile homes? And we're actually rolling out an education platform called Mobile Mailbox Money for people that want to buy and flip manufactured housing, and that's called Mobile Mailbox Money, piggybacking off our note sale website. But that being said, we've found great inroads, obviously with for sale by owners. It's kind of a cheesy answer, uh, but like scouring Mobile Home Village, Facebook Marketplace, as well as one of the biggest areas of success for acquisitions from us is the parks. Going to talk with the manager who
Mhm.
on the 5th of the month has to collect everybody's lot rent. And on the
Mhm.
7th of the month, Alden Guajardo rolls in, hey, who's behind on payments, blah, blah, blah. Can they use a cash offer? Can we save someone from eviction today? That's a big deal with a cash offer, obviously on an asset that makes sense financially. Uh, but finding those little bit more dilapidated homes, depending on your savviness in rehab and things of that nature, just definitely want to be careful about the homes that you're buying. But parks, parks are a great asset. The managers, 9 times out of 10, may raise a gun at you for walking in the door, but it's about breaking that communication barrier
Yeah,
because they hear, oh, I'm a flipper or whatever,
Mhm.
and it's a negative connotation. They don't
Sure.
really so much want to deal with that. But when you involve a story of, hey, listen, we're buying this house, rehabbing it
we're
here,
improving
selling
your
it
area.
here, we're improving the quality of the community. We bring
Yeah.
private finance for sell or carry. They're like, oh, wow, here, I got 3 keys. You want to go check these houses
Yeah,
out? Like, sure.
Hmm.
interesting.
Very interesting, Alden.
You're making us sweat. You're making us sweat and think that
Uh,
maybe our hesitancy has been a little bit misguided.
And that is fantastic. Why is that fantastic? That's fantastic because that means that there's more game for me and you guys here
Yes.
today. I'm telling you right now that this is being overlooked by institutional investors that are buying these parks
Yeah.
who may have to be quiet. No, seriously, I'm telling you
Yeah.
right now that there's a new frontier. While BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are pushing people out of affordable home ownership and residential real estate and multifamily rental rates, they're hedging the market, want to own 40% of residential properties by 2030.
Yep.
Where does that leave people? Their income hasn't kept up. Labor and material costs are rising at all-time highs. And meanwhile, Warren Buffett's just chefing it left and right.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Go ahead, Nathan. Let you finish up our conversation.
Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting, Alden. We're learning a lot here. So we like to kind of finish off every one of our podcasts just asking, what do you see coming down the pipe? What's your crystal ball on where the market's going, specifically with mobile homes? And I think you've talked about that a little bit, but what do you got for us?
Yeah, I saw, I think it was Klaus Schwab was saying that, they're going to make some big changes by 2030. And BlackRock was like, you're going to own nothing and be happy. What does that mean? That means residential properties are going to stay unaffordable. They are. Whether rates go down or rates go up, they're going to hold strong because there's an institutional appetite for these properties to hedge the market. We just saw the biggest bloodshed ever in the stock market. Where do they recoup those gains? In residential real estate and owning these properties for 100 years, pricing out hardworking Americans, new families, and active retirees. Where do they go? They go to mobile homes because
Mhm.
prices, I believe, I don't have a crystal ball. It is an election year. So, we almost saw an assassination the other day. There's a lot of crazy things going on in the market. And I think that it's all pointing to residential pricing and rental rates holding value, I think, across the board, because if rates go down, prices go up, and there's been a reduction of products coming out on the market because the
Yep.
COVID delay, the delay in permits, now labor and materials double what it used to cost. I'm gonna draw my conclusion there.
Awesome. Well, Alden, hang out for after hours. We appreciate if you need to reach out to Alden in the comments in the chat on YouTube. This will be recorded on our podcast, everything else. You can use the link to get his information. But Alden, thank you very much for some awesome information and swaying us in a way we didn't think we'd be swayed today.
Yeah, no, happy to be here on the show, recapping
Yeah.
Diversified Mortgage Expo, talking to Nathan and Dave. That's
Woo-wee.
mobile mailbox money, baby.